All right. So, gents, just wondering if you've taken a minute to try out any recent or new audiobooks recently. Just wondering. Not for any particular reason, like today's sponsor or anything. That might be audible.com.
I didn't.
Boo, I don't know.
Oh, you guys like a bag of dicks, but that's all right. This episode was brought to our lovely sponsor, audible.com. Try it out, get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Brewmasters Club. One word. Over 180,000 titles, guys. 180,000. There's certainly something you can find there. We've all seen Rogue One. It would still help if you read, Catalyst, or at least had somebody read it to you. But we can tackle that when we get there. No Ryan just yet. Want to start the show?
I would like to know if somebody could read me the audiobook. Is that a thing?
Just recite. Okay, now I think what he's talking about.
I want them. Well, no, I might be. Yeah, I might be the only one here who prefers their audiobook in a British sort of regalement. Again, might just be me, but I would like somebody from England to just give it that special touch. That's how I appreciate my audiobooks. But I mean, to each his own.
All right, let's just go ahead and start the show.
Crazy mother.
Welcome to the official podcast of the Brewmasters Club, Craft Brews and Geek News. Sit back, pour yourself a pint, and let's get into it. Now here's the founder of the Brewmasters Club and your host, Donnie Gallagher.
Welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Brewmasters Club. My name is Donnie. I'm the founder of the Brewmasters Club, here bringing you Craft Brews and Geek News, our podcast, the official podcast of the Brewmasters Club. I'm joined today by Mr. Dane. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Hopefully I can survive 2016. Getting killed off.
It's getting pretty grim, man. That's what we're going to kind of hit on today. As well as Mr. Lousman. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Doing all thumbs up here. We're good.
I see that. Yeah, Louse has a surprise for us. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, talking with my hands today, pulling a Mr. Wilson here from Tool Time.
Is it a face tattoo? You get a face tattoo?
It's not a face tattoo. No, it's not a face tattoo. It's more like a lack thereof of a face tattoo. So
a lack of a face or lack of a tattoo on your face?
There was a comma. You know what? That was my fault. I put a comma in there. There shouldn't have been.
When are you going to divulge this surprise to the listeners here that are not watching but listening?
To the listeners, it's going to come audioly very soon. But to the
get it on Audible.
Yeah,
an Audible secret. Oh boy.
So all right. So do I need to set you up, or are you just going to surprise us sometime?
I figured I'm just gonna rock it back when I deem it necessary. I mean, I could do it now.
I mean, it's up to you. Ryan's not here. If you want to wait, he will be joining us a little bit later in the show.
You know what? I'll just go ahead and do it now. So it's a little something I cooked up. It's not.
Oh, you're shaving your beard off.
I'm the fifth Beatle. Whoa.
Yeah, you do. Is it a bowl cut?
Dude.
Yeah.
Righteous, dude.
Yep.
Yeah,
that came
out. Bowl
cut,
man.
It does look like a bowl cup. That's actually just due to the lighting here. See, it's more of a comb over.
It's a Caesar.
It's a Hail Caesar. Don't know what that is, but okay. I'm not used to that, but that's fine.
Caesar salad, maybe.
Yeah.
Caesar salad. Caesar salad.
Actually,
let's get into what brought us here tonight, because we have a really packed episode, and I know that we're trying to get through this because this is the very last episode of 2016. It's a great time to kind of reflect back, and that's exactly what we bring in here. We have an interview with author and writer Mark Denote.
Do we have any otter interviews? Wait a second. I interviewed.
Somebody didn't hear it.
I interviewed several beavers last week, but I thought we cut that.
Well,
is this because of all the otter jokes?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was about to say. I was like, you ought to believe I'm going to cut this out. I'm cutting all this out.
Boy.
Yeah.
No,
you
can't.
We'll just go to outer space.
It's not even relevant.
I hate all this.
I hate it
Do I look like I give a damn? Do I look like I build a dam?
Oh,
That was a good one.
okay, I like that one. That one kind of needs to stay now. Man, needs
All
to
right.
stay.
Okay, well, okay, maybe it'll stay. Maybe some of this will stay. But in the meantime, while we're deliberating that, let's tune in to a little bit about this interview, who Mark is, kind of what he did, and how he became this author. And before we do so, we'll go ahead and kick it off with Rye Guy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Glad I can make it. How's everybody else?
Good. I'm just wondering how you're hanging on to your seat at the moment.
Am I sideways?
Yes.
Oh no.
Sitting sideways.
Just the sideways sidewalk, bro.
Oh,
How was
Lord.
How was dinner, Ryan?
It was great. We went to Olive Garden, got some
No,
super
the OG.
breadsticks.
Yeah. Do you notice anything different
Great.
about Laos's face besides his face tattoo?
I actually
Yep.
Did you lose a bet?
No, he's just obese.
Yeah.
You thought shaving the beard hair would
Though that is
shave a couple
also
pounds off.
true.
What came over you to do that, huh?
Unless you're talking about a Saturday
No,
night, then it was Tim or Toby.
Oh, boy. You're really taking that to a level here there, champ.
First,
Oh, boy.
what we're going to do is play a little bit of this interview that we had with Mark. Ryan, what you missed was just the intro as to what I'm just going to play here, which is the interview with Mark Denote. He's the writer and the
Roger
author
that.
of Florida Craft Beer Guide. He also wrote the Tampa Bay Beer Guide. So,
Cool.
Pretty knowledgeable guy. You guys ready?
Yep.
Oh,
All right.
Yarp.
Mark, tell everybody a little bit about what your background is with craft beer, especially in the South, South here with your books and whatnot. Give everybody a little bit of an elevator pitch of who Mark Denote is.
Sure. So about probably 4 or 5 years ago, I noticed that there was not really a special interest in Florida beer. I started pitching. I decided I wanted to write about beer, so I pitched stories about Florida beer to national publications and blogs. And when no one was really interested in it, I decided to take up the mantle myself and start a blog that has become a website called Florida Beer News, which I try and update as regularly as possible. News about breweries in the state, craft beer in the state, new breweries coming in through distribution. And I've been doing that for a number of years now, and let's say 4 or 5 years. And so I worked to cover news about the state as I traveled the state and got to hear the breweries, got to hear the backstories, got to drink the beer and experience the beer culture in the state of Florida. I started writing down some of the stories and compiling them into a book. Wrote a book called The Great Florida Craft Beer Guide. That's my first book, and that came out in 2014. And then with a different press and publisher, I had the opportunity to expand the Tampa section and write a book detailing just the history of Tampa and focusing more on the city where I live and the city that I love. And that was my second book, Tampa Bay Beer, A Heady History. I continue to write the news wherever I can. I continue to do freelance articles that have been published in All About Beer, in Draft, and in a few other publications. And I like telling the story and keeping up with the beer culture. It's a fantastic place to be. It's a fantastic group of people, predominantly, and that's really me.
Ryan, you were at Florida Craft Beer Day last year, right?
The year before, I unfortunately could not make it out last year.
Well, no, Florida Craft Beer Day.
Florida Craft Beer Day. I was thinking
the
the festival thing. Sorry,
Yeah,
but
the
I was
no.
at the Florida Craft Beer Day. Yep.
Yeah, so
I was
Mark
there.
was there. Did you meet Mark?
Oh,
Yeah, he was the author.
I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah, he's a real soft-spoken guy,
yeah.
but he writes these incredibly detailed history, kind of these books, these great periodicals that just detail everything about where the beer history came from, and of course, like he said, he outlined Tampa Bay and the history they had. He's a real cool guy, but the funny thing is he was an English teacher before he was actually an author, and he said, I just wanted to write about these stories, things that I like. As terms of transitions, I mean that's pretty good, right? From an English teacher. I don't know if I would have necessarily the patience and the dedication like that to do all the research, but he's how we found out about Florida Craft Beer Days. So it's pretty. He's got an interesting story. You want to know what his book's about? Besides history of beer?
Absolutely.
No, it absolutely is. The next one, what he's got, he basically kind of went on to tell me a little bit more about what his books are about in terms of not just Florida history and whatnot, but how do you detail, what kind of perspective is it told from? So he's got kind of an interesting angle that he wrote him on. Let's listen to what he said for this.
My books really look at the history, and that's part of what I did to try and make them as timeless as possible. So while we're making history right now, it's important to go back and look at the first brewery in Tampa. 1897 it opened, starts building in 1896, built with the Ybor fortune that Mr. Martinez Ybor unfortunately did not live to see it open, but it was his collaborative vision that the brewery be open for his workers. And I like touching on that. I like touching on the historical aspect because the community has always been here to support craft beer and local beer. And even when Busch Gardens was open, there was plenty of room for other people to come in and play. When what's now Yuengling was Schlitz and Stroh, I mean, there was always enough space for more than one brewery, even a huge brewery, to come and to sell their beer and to make a mark on the community. And the stories are many and varied, and that's the thing I love is touching on that. And then I like to keep it as current as possible, but honestly, Donnie, while you and I are talking, there's probably been another brewery opening in the state.
That's right.
Because we're just opening them that quickly.
Yeah.
And I wish I was exaggerating, but I swear 2 or 3 of them open every weekend.
Yeah.
And that's just because it's the weekend. And so I wish it was exaggerating, but I can't. It's too much for one man to cover anymore. So I try and keep it as current as I can, and then what I can't touch on in the books or the articles, I publish on the website and try and stay current that way. So, I mean, I try and reach an audience of the people who are interested in the current beer scene, the historical beer scene, and writing as much as I can about beer, trying to interest from the person who just had their first craft beer to the person who's had over 5,000.
Yeah.
The thing he rallied about and he talked about quite a few times is a note that I noticed from Mark that was kind of like his mantra. And he spoke about the community, and we get into that, and that'll be the next one that we go to listen to from Mark about his thoughts on community. But before we do, he brought up the beer community like 4 or 5 times, and I just think it's extremely relevant, especially for us to chat about. But like Ryan, you've had experience being in the hospitality industry. Laos, you've done work in bars and restaurants before. I mean, what is your opinion of the craft beer community? And Laos, you might have something different than Ryan. And Ryan, you go first just to explain. But I'd love to hear, because I asked that very same question to Mark, and he gives me one explanation that I thought was intelligent. It was something that I think that we all can kind of relate to. So, Ryan, what is that craft beer community kind of? If you were to describe it, how would you do so?
Yeah, from the industry that I worked in, people were very mainstream with their beers, getting the basics, but I definitely feel that the craft beer community is growing more towards getting different flavors, different tastes, and things of that nature, and growing towards different styles of beer, and not just sticking with, and nothing against Guinness, but not just sticking with your normal Guinnesses and trying to really explore that. So that crowd is growing, and at the same time, those other industries where they're just focused on selling the normal beers like your Miller Lights and Bud Lights, towards the tail end of my time at those bars and things, tended to look a little bit smaller, a little bit dimmer. So, Laos, what do you got on that?
Well, actually, all the bars and restaurants that I've worked at, they actually weren't any sort of microbrew or any sort of brewery in their own right. So they actually only dealt with pretty mainstream beers. I mean, they didn't really divulge too far either which way. But
what I would love to know is, like, what are your thoughts on the community as an entity? I mean, like, there's biker gangs, and there's Star Wars fans, and there's Star Trek fans, and there's Warcraft fans. The craft beer community as a whole, that was kind of what I asked him to reflect on. So I'd love to know, Laos, from your perspective, like, what do you see as the craft beer community? Are they friendly? They're not nice? They're welcoming? They're cold? That's what I want to ask you and find out from you.
Oddly enough, I would say they're somewhat transient from my point of view. I would say, and the only reason I would say that is because it tends to transfer. It moves around a lot. Like some places that I go, people say, "Oh, this beer is great," but all of a sudden, we got this new brewery, and we've got 2 or 3 brewers in the area. This is speaking on Orlando. This is Tampa. They tend to move around a lot. Some of them say, "Hey, I'll just follow the cheapest," or "Hey, I'll just follow the newest, weirdest." And sometimes that kind of transfers around a little bit, and you can't really pinpoint like an audience. It's kind of just like whatever's popping off at that particular area at that particular time. So unfortunately, I don't really have a great answer for that.
No,
well, and Donnie, you actually when I heard your question again, it started to dawn on me that when like working in the industries, when I saw people ordering a craft beer, I almost felt like, I could approach them more because I kind of had an idea of what they were drinking. Like, you start talking about different types of beers and, different breweries. You almost feel like it's like a language of its own. You're not just talking about partying, but you're talking about why you're enjoying the beer and, what can you pair it with. So it's really a different language. And I guess from that perspective, that's the community that I feel comfortable in now, drinking a beer. It's not just about going out and getting drunk. So
yeah, no, that's good insight. Dane, what do you think about if you were going to try and summarize that question?
The first thing that comes to mind is, and I can't remember the name of the place, but the place we all went to surprise Ryan. Is it the Florida?
Oh, that was Coppertail.
Coppertail.
Yeah.
Coppertail. It kind of reminds me of that place. Kind of trendy, a little outside the box, kind of laid back. I kind of get that feel with it. And the thing with craft beer, people don't drink it to really just get drunk and wasted and just to feel something. I think people drink it for the taste and for what it represents as a craft, artsy. The craft beer community reminds me of that. And it's kind of like maybe a winery where you go and relax at a winery and you taste wine. It kind of has that feel to it, to where there's actually a substance there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just drinking it to drink it and feel that the alcohol.
It was funny because and I don't remember if it's on this clip exactly, and we'll play it because Mark, like I said, Mark had some great insight just from the knowledge that he's done across the state and across the country on beer. But basically, Ryan, he touched on a couple of your points too, where people are approachable because they're trying something, and you see the same folks, and you see how people are kind of moving from brewery to brewery, like you said, Laos Man, and how brewers move and people that work there move, and the fans of the breweries move, and they want to try what's local or what's cheap or what's new or what's different. But it's a welcoming community that's unlike any other. And I make a reference or two about how there is no other community kind of like this. But you guys all kind of touched on the same points exactly that Mark and I brought up. So let me play this right now just so we can hear it, and then we'll kind of move on to the next segment. Because like I said, we got a lot to talk about this week.
What is the beer community to you?
The beer community is really a group of friends, and the best way for me to try and sum it up is imagine that you're sitting on a bar stool and just having a beer by yourself or with one friend. In a beer is a communal thing, so I have done it in the past, and it's interesting to just turn to the person on either side that you don't know and say, hey, what are you drinking? And strike up a conversation, and it's okay. It's
right.
Safe. In craft beer, it's usually that's okay to do. And so after doing that many times and striking up conversations with plenty of different people from different walks of life, that's one of the greatest examples to me of the community of beer, because you find after you start going to beer events, after you start going to bottle releases and beer festivals, that a lot of the people you see over and over and over and over and over again, and so you get to know them and you get to talk to them, and you don't necessarily always become friends, but you're friendly. So, to me, it's every once in a while, I'll miss a beer. There'll be a good beer that I don't get to sample at a beer festival, and one of those people who's only an acquaintance to me, I don't really even know their name, I may just know their face, they've got some in their glass, and so they'll pour a little bit in mine, because we both know that we both really want to try this beer, and that person was fortunate, he or she was fortunate enough to get to the front of the line and get it, whereas I wasn't, and then, I reciprocate the next time, and it's a cool relationship with people who might otherwise be strangers, and you get to talking and you see that you're politically different and socioeconomically different, and there's so many different differences, but yet you both like beer. And so that's kind of the one common denominator that makes you friends where you might not otherwise be, or might not even talk to each other otherwise.
It's interesting that you put it like that, because it almost sounds reminiscent of like a club, and it sounds almost like a Star Wars fan club or like Star Trek fan club. I mean, but this is something that I don't think it's really unprecedented. There's nobody that sits around and talks about steak or cuts of hamburger or hot dogs, like this, that are so communal.
Yeah.
So it really does just make this circle of friends, no matter where you go and where you're drinking. It's an excellent point that you make. You can turn to anybody and say, hey, what are you drinking there?
So, yeah, I mean, there probably are guys sitting around talking about hot dogs and their hot dog fan club.
Actually, I do that.
Louse likes to talk about hot dogs in his mouth.
Yeah, mine meets every Tuesday. We call it Hot Dog Tuesday, but
Louse is the president.
Yeah, it's like it might not exactly.
Wiener Wednesday.
Wiener Wednesday. Yeah, why didn't you go Wiener Wednesday, Louse?
Yeah, probably because
real wiener.
Probably because he's a little kid going. Sorry, guys. What do you do, dude? Yeah, no.
Back on track here. So you can see, like, he's got, Mark had a wealth of knowledge and a bunch of great examples, but he basically felt, the same way that each of you kind of described. So it's interesting to hear that level of perspective from somebody like Mark that, makes a profession out of writing about beer and knows so much. So I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
I had,
and not just at the bar, but also I've helped people that are trying to buy craft beer from the craft beer aisle. I'm like, oh, this one's good. And, we strike up a conversation, become friends, shake hands. And, that's been one of the coolest experiences in my mind. So, yeah, definitely communal.
I do the same thing. I don't know if people like it or not, but I see somebody looking at something on the shelf. I'm like, oh, you should definitely try that one because, that is a great IPA. Have you guys done that before, Louse Man? You ever do that in your local liquor store?
I mean, I have at the craft beer cellar. They recommend almost everything, and I'm like, I get it. Like, yeah, that's cool. I'm very excited to try all these things, but one or two at a time, please. Like, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, I catch. But again, I catch myself doing it all the time. So I have one more. You guys want to hear the last clip? It's 3 minutes. I got one more clip, and it's about his insight as to
Donnie, because they hit that clip.
Hit that clip.
Thought you weren't going to talk. I didn't think you were going to talk. I didn't think I was going to interrupt any sort of like a voiceover thing, but I ruined it. So hit that clip.
Oh, it's all good. No, so this is the question that I asked him was, what do you think led to the rapid success of craft beer and how it got so big so quickly? Again, coming from a guy who really did some research and some understanding, it should be interesting. So just take a listen. I'll hit that clip.
Hit that clip.
What do you think is the merit, or what is the continual growth that's led craft beer to kind of what it is? Is it simply product, passion, and that sense of community, or is there some trick to it that's made it explode the way it has?
I think it's twofold. To me, it's the flavor of the beer and the story behind it. I myself find that I'm a sucker for a good story, and so Cigar City, as an example, uses the beer label, uses the beer as an excuse and a gateway to tell people something about Tampa's history. And I think that's really cool, and you can see that the passion for history and the passion for beer kind of go together there, but there's a story. And I think we as human beings are suckers for a good story. And so that's part of it. And then, comparatively speaking, craft beer has so many different flavor avenues it can go down that there's any number of them. And you can't judge a beer by its smell. You can't judge a beer by its taste. You can't judge a beer really by any one factor. It's the sum of all parts that makes the whole. And so that aspect of it as well. And so, people who are used to drinking different kinds of beverages are blown away by beer and the infinite possibilities of flavor, taste, of flavor and aroma. And it's a difference maker. And combine that with the different brewers and their different takes on different beers. I mean, Angry Chair Brewing makes a beer that tastes like German chocolate cake.
Yeah, I've had it. It's delicious.
That's pretty cool. There are other ones that taste like different kinds of desserts or different kinds of cordials. Or I had a beer from Brooklyn that tasted like an old fashioned. And that's cocktail inspired beers are a thing, and beers fermented with wine yeast are a thing. And you can play with the yeast, you can play with the malt, you can play with all kinds of different hops. It's infinite diversity in the beer industry right now, and you kind of when I was a kid, I collected sports cards, and I followed different sports players and what they did in their careers, and it's kind of funny because I think I'm doing that with brewers now. So when brewers move on to a different brewery, I kind of want to see what they do in this next canvas, in this next palette, with this next opportunity. The same way that you follow Emmett Smith when he went from the Cowboys to the Cardinals, or the Brewers are kind of celebrities, rock stars in their own right. When they start making that good beer, and you want to see what this artist can do, it's when like Eric Clapton goes solo, or John Lennon and Paul McCartney split up. You follow the music because they make different music when they're with different ensembles, and so that following it with a brewer, I mean, beer is liquid art. So there you go, and you just follow this person, and I find myself like a kid again, wanting to know what these brewers are going to do with the different opportunities.
So that's your next project. It's Florida Brewers trading cards. I got it. I nailed it. I'm sorry. Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. Hey. Let's trademark it right now.
So basically, again, a couple good points. Some of them which we touched on already, but isn't that neat just to hear that perspective? How you follow, different brewers, you can meet up with these guys again. And Ryan, there's a sports reference, so you and I can actually be on
that.
Yeah, how great is that?
I actually collect football cards, so I totally empathize with what he was talking about.
Yeah, well, that's not actually his next project. He was being a little quiet, so I have a feeling that Mark's working on something right now with this next project. But what do you think about that, Dino? Pretty good insight, right?
Absolutely. He's got a nice way of speaking. Really puts things in perspective. Really goes to the point. But I think that's the English teacher in him. So.
Yeah, he certainly got away with words. And it's funny that an English teacher who likes beer really enjoys the story behind beer, right? I was like, well, there's a correlation if I ever saw one.
Here's your sign.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, but it's good. I mean,
you wrote the sign.
Yeah, right. Well, what better guy to talk about beer than the guy that's got the passion and the influence and the knowledge and the know-how to actually passionately, correctly talk about it. So once again, that was Mark Denote, the writer and author of a Florida craft beer guide and a Tampa Bay beer guide as well. Two great pieces of literature. I highly suggest we talked about it. This is a book for the beer fan, the non-beer fan, the diehard, the hophead. It's just a very interesting piece. So I hope you guys like that, but we won't dwell because we've got a lot to get through. You guys, any last questions or comments?
Nah, that was great. Thanks for having that interview.
Yeah, well, Mark's great, and he'll be back on again. He volunteered. Somehow we talked him into it, and he'll be at Florida Craft Beer Day 2017. So a lot more on that coming up. The next thing that we have coming up is the best beers of 2016. We're going to go through this pretty quickly, but these are just – I looked at several different articles on best beers, and this one kind of had the most comprehensive list. There's about 10 beers here. It's from pace.com. We'll go through them real fast.
Tell me about beers.
Beers?
Not
about beers. So –
I can't tell you about beards anymore.
Well, this is funny because this list, the second one, and this is, like I said, I looked at 3 or 4 different lists, and every single one of them had Cigar City on it. And it was the same Cigar City beer. So, like, if you guys haven't had this, have it. I tried it. It's amazing. It's number 2. I'm going to start off terribly out of order here. Number 2 was the pumpkin beer that they made this year was the Cigar City Good Gourd Almighty. So good, and it's described as a masterpiece because of how good it is. Plus, it uses all the gourds and this these crazy flavors that they bring in. I'm trying to read through here. It's plum, raisin, dried fruitiness. It just accentuates these fantastic fruity notes on the nose and the palate. It's got a big boozy taste to it because it's 11%, so it's right up your alley, Louse Man. And they just crammed a whole bunch of goodness into this beer. They actually described it as sinfully decadent, which is something that I would love to enjoy. I think it came out right before Halloween, but it was definitely something that we should have really spent some time enjoying. I did try it once. Ryan, you're shaking your head. Have you tried it or no?
I kept passing it. I didn't get a chance.
You saw it everywhere, right?
I
saw it
screwed up.
everywhere.
Yeah, I was like, no, maybe not today. I wanted to get something else. My bad. Sounds like it's got your full day's fruits intake though. So you're good to go there.
It hits the pyramid, that's for sure.
Sounds like we missed out.
Yeah, I was about to say Louse and Dane. Did you guys?
I'm
guessing Dane, you didn't, but Louse Man, did you see that one anywhere?
I did not, unfortunately.
Check the craft beer cellar when you. Yeah, I believe they also sell it in a bomber. I think it's in a 750 and with a cork top. So try that out if you see it. But just to run down the list, a couple more. They had one of the best beers they mentioned was Vermont Brewing Cowshe Canyon. I'm not sure, but it's a fresh hop ale out of Seattle, Washington. Extremely strong hop nose, very, very strong flavor, juicy lemon, citrus, tropical fruit notes, chased by a bitter, kind of a finish. The citrus kind of edges out the resin that leaves on your palate, so it's juicy, it's semi-sweet, and very dry. I would love that. 6% alcohol by volume. I love IPAs, though. So another one that made the list was an Oktoberfest or a Marzen. It was the Ayinger Oktoberfest Marzen out of Germany, actually, with 5.8% alcohol. It's just a classic German Marzen. So, of course, like this kind of won, this category for Marzens and Oktoberfest. Creamy, smooth, toasty malt, just a nice drinkable Marzen. So that would have came out over, again, the fall time. But again, if you get a chance to try it or you see it out there, do go for it. In terms of American IPAs, Prison City Pub and Brewery had a mass riot out of Auburn, New York. That sounds like a news story, but it was just the name of the beer. It was basically, they went through 247 American IPAs and chose this one as the best. In terms of they call it the Big Juicy. It appeals to a Caribbean pale ale. It's got a lot of tropical flavors, rich and fruity, cantaloupe and citrus, which I've not ever had an IPA at least that I can recall that has a lot of cantaloupe flavor that you could call out of it. So I'd be interested to try this out. But again, another great IPA. In terms of the Pilsners here, we're looking at Urban Chestnut Stamstitch, I guess it's called, out of St. Louis, Missouri. Basically, this one is going to be another kind of, it's a regular flavor, but it's because it's a Pilsner, but it just stands out because the maltiness is balanced by a wonderful floral, perfumey, evocative hop note that dominates the nose. Then you leave the malt on the palate, makes it extremely clean, crisp, German Pilsner, strikes an ideal balance between drinkability and character. So again, that's Urban Chestnut Stamstitch. If you get a chance, check it out. Black IPA. Now, Ryan, you had a white stout, right? That's what you were trying to get for Rogue One?
I was, yeah. Failed miserably.
So this is a black IPA. Do any of you guys actually like black IPAs? Because they're not exactly the most drinkable beers. I
do. Actually.
Yeah, well, the black IPA they put on here, I don't really like black IPAs because they're so rich, they're so dark. They just don't have that same feel that a regular IPA does. Plus, they've got like cocoa nutty malts piece of it, which I don't really like. Yeah, I don't like that in my IPAs. I like that with my browns, my reds. But this is the black IPA that they said was the best. It's the Stone. It's by Stone out of Escondido, California, and it's called Enjoy by 5-4-16 Black IPA. So I'm guessing that we missed the run on this one, but that's okay. I'm sure they'll make a similar beer next year, so we'll have to just check it out there. Barley wine. Do you guys like barley wines at all? The only person I know that loves barley wines is Christian Roberts, because I don't like them.
I like the barley wine that you and Christian or you and Ryan Roberts made.
Yeah, our beer tastes a lot like a barley wine.
Well, the early
Sierra Nevada makes a very good one. It's barley wine style, but I'd like to say Revolution Brewery, where this one's out of.
Right.
I've actually been to that brewery and I love that brewery. So
yeah, I figured you'd have something to say.
Making the list.
Did you try this one, the barley one?
I don't think it was on tap when I was there, but this place does it right with their cans. Every can is like a superhero on the side of it. It's really badass.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. No,
that you mentioned that.
They're basically saying this is a big tasting beer. Maple syrup, butterscotch. Somehow it's not that difficult to drink, but it's got 13% alcohol by volume. They said it's whiskey soaked and frighteningly drinkable. So
that may actually be what they were fermenting in the casks, because when we walked in, I mean, the place is huge. On the wall, they got a huge American flag, and then next to it, they've got all of their barrels and everything, and the back is the actual brewing part. So maybe that's what they were letting kind of, come together there in the front of the brewery. So,
perhaps
that's exciting.
Yeah, well, you got to try it out, man. I'm not a big barley wine fan, but it sounds if it's that drinkable, and that's why I don't like them because they're often not very drinkable. So, if it is, I'd be interested to try it out. Again, Christian Roberts loves them, but I'd be interested to try it regardless. So,
trip to Chicago, maybe.
You want to drive?
Yeah.
Can we take an Uber?
Can we fly?
Can we take
can
your
we-
Santa Fe and not the Sonata?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
please.
It's got
I'll
a
get a
look
different
track,
Hyundai
too.
this time.
Yeah,
It's an upgrade.
So I won't go through into great detail the remainder of them just because we've spent a lot of time on this particular section. But because in 3 days it's the New Year, so I wanted to offer up a couple suggestions for some bros out there that may want to bring a cork pop top beer instead of a bottle of champagne. There's a whole bunch out there. Some really good ones that I've actually had are the ones that come from St. Bernardus. Have you guys ever had those, the Ab 12 or the Prior 8?
Yep.
Nope.
I've had the Ab 12. It's just amazing. They make some of the best Belgian beers. Possibly because they are from Belgium, I'm not sure, but they're just
Might
really
have something
good.
to do with it.
Yeah, and they
Good
come
reason.
in at $7.50, so you could literally just bring one of these bad boys to a New Year's Eve party, pop the top when everybody goes crazy at midnight, and pour out some delicious tasting high alcohol beer that is comparable to any champagne you have out there. One that I have to mention because it's my absolute favorite, Sriracha. It's the Brooklyn Sriracha Ace, and it's so good. It's a saison. So if you ever get a chance to see that, take a look and take a try and let me know what you think. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
So at this point, thank you for listening to that list and, of course, those interviews. At this point, we'll talk about our local news. Basically, we are rounding out the year. So it's 2016 is coming to a close. We've gone through our 2 interviews that we had this year. We've gone through our list of 2016 beers that you've got to try or that you had to have tried or that we would consider some of the best. We're moving on to something now that's a little bit more different. But here, what we wanted to say is that we are, community driven, and we are all about everybody that talks to us. So please continue to send your tweets and everything else. We love talking to everybody that's out there. We are always available. And we just encourage that you do communicate. You get your questions right on air, and all sorts of fun stuff. So please continue sending those. Now, this next piece, I don't know if you guys saw this, but it's a little bit of sad news in terms of what we're going to talk about next. Before we get there, who brought something interesting to talk about in terms of beer? Anybody?
I did.
I did.
I did.
Why don't you lead us off, Dana?
Yeah, so the beer I'm drinking tonight is a beer that I've been wanting to bring for a while, and I was finally able to get my hands on some. So it's kind of become a tradition side, and it's trying to find as many of these beers as possible so we can hoard them because these things fly off the shelves. It's a seasonal. It's Highland Brewing Company Cold Mountain. It's a winter ale. 20th anniversary this year, so this stuff was selling like hotcakes. I tell you what, man. So Dad gave me this pint. There's one left in this random store. He's like, "Yeah, take that," and I was like, "All right, cool." And then my stepbrother gave me a 24 pack of some 12 ounces. So.
Now he sounds like a jerk, that guy.
Considering in fantasy football, he could buy me a lot of beer.
Okay.
Anyways, it's back in action for its 20th anniversary. Again, it's from Highland. They're Carolina. They're actually the first brewery, a legal brewery since Prohibition. In Asheville,
The
North
first
Carolina.
legal brewery.
The first legal brewery.
First illegal brewery.
The illegal one, yeah. They would have found that by now.
This beer is their longest running seasonal. It's called Cold Mountain. It's a winter warmer. Honestly, this beer's very unique. Really fit that style in my mind. Kind of imagine a caramel colored, really malty forward ale. It's not really roasty. It's not real bitter. It doesn't really rely on that crazy boozy finish that a lot of beers have. They don't disclose what spices they have, but I kind of taste maybe hazelnut and vanilla. They say there's some fruits and stuff. Maybe cranberry, there's a fruity in there as well. But this stuff's really good. I highly recommend it if you can get your hands on it. So try it out. Highland Brewing Company, Cold Mountain.
Yeah, well, good pick and good story behind it.
I'll actually introduce this. I went to the store tonight and I found this little guy from Stone Brewery, and
Sorry,
I just muted him. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ryan.
And from Stone Brewery, and this is called the Delicious IPA. It's an American Pale Ale, though, or on our version of things, and it's actually very citrusy. I think that's where it gets most of its notoriety from, being a very citrusy India Pale Ale. And with lemon drop and Eldorado hops. So it comes across very hoppy. It makes all the hop heads out there very hoppy, if you will. And I like the way that this finishes. It does pucker a little bit in the mouth as you're drinking it. Finishes really smooth. If I could liken it to any of the beers down here, I would liken it to the Cigar City Highlight. But at the same time, I think the Highlight. Oh, spoiler alert! I think the Highlight finishes a little thicker, and it also has a little bit more color. This is more on the golden side of things. I think the Highlight has a little bit more of a reddish, kind of goldeny red tint to it. So very good overall. It scores an 88 on beeradvocate.com. And so I definitely am very happy and satisfied with this delicious IPA. Cheers to you all.
Yeah, fantastic. And Dane is still walking around somewhere, so until he gets situated and unmutes himself, I can talk about what I brought. I brought the Highlight just because I love it so much. Oh, there he is. Ryan, you've hinted on it. We've talked about Highlight 1,000 times. We don't have to go into it much. Even Mark mentioned the Highlight and how great their brewery is. Basically, let me just say, Highlight is the merry game. Again, this is talking about the history of Florida and how this beer got here, as well as what it pairs with. But enough about Highlight. Dane, I see you've switched spots.
No, I'm back.
Yeah.
I had to plug in. I was dying on you guys.
All right. Well, I'm glad that
it's
you're
not
here.
over yet.
That's okay. Yeah, we're almost there.
They wanted to claim the life of your phone, though.
But Lausman brought a special beer, and he wanted your opinion and your intake on it. So we had to wait till you were tuned back in. So go ahead, Lausman. Take it away.
Man, I literally only wanted Dane's opinion on this.
Okay. We appreciate that.
Well, I apologize, but hashtag no sorry. But Dane, so this one is kind of for you, buddy. I actually found what is labeled as Dog Tag Brewing.
Oh.
I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a legacy lager is what it's marketed as. And this is absolutely, I got to be honest about the taste first off and foremost. For a beer, podcast here, nothing too out of the realm, kind of standard issue, but what they've done with their marketing, their bottling, their canning, I should say, process, it's actually absolutely kind of rocked me to my core. So for Dog Tag Brewing, their legacy lager, every single can is actually it's got a bit of it's got a dog tag on it, which is not any sort of surprise from the name, but the dog tag is from a fallen military person. So it's
no
absolutely
kidding.
Yeah. And I bought a 4-pack for about $7, maybe $8. In my 4-pack is different, and each one of them has rocked me to my core. It has their dog tag. Their service time, born date, service, absolute service death. It's rocked me. Absolutely. I have no idea. Again, the beer itself, nothing to write home about. It's kind of wondering how this whole process came about, but it's sponsored by Pabst. I should say not sponsored, but Pabst pays the actual brewery, and to quote the can exactly, the Dog Tag Brewing Company donates 100% of its profits to the benefit chapteries or created by selected families. So what they do is Pabst pays the actual salaries of the people who brew the beer, and then any profits made by selling the beer goes to the charities. And so, I mean, I've had 2 or 3 of them tonight, and each one of them has a different name on it, a different, rank, a different everything on it, and it's kind of blown me away. So,
different story behind every beer. That's
pretty much
pretty hardcore.
Yeah. It's the most hardcore. Excellent. I mean, I had no idea I saw it on the shelf. I loved the idea of it. I knew that there was a big, donating benefit behind it, but this has blown me away. I mean, every single beer. Just to go through the 3, I would like to do that real quickly. So currently, the beer that I'm drinking is it is donated to Sergeant Andrew J. Baddock, June 1977 to September 2003. The one I had before that was to SSG. What would that be?
Staff Sergeant.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Staff Sergeant Chris M. Falkel, 1982 to 2005. And then the one before that, again, this is kind of rocking me to my core. The one before that was that would be Lieutenant Corporal.
Lance Corporal.
Lance Corporal, my apologies. Lance Corporal Michael A. Shores, and then 1986 to 2006. So, wow. I mean,
20.
That happened just in this evening. I mean, I kind of feel bad. I mean, I feel super bad that I haven't paid attention to things like this beforehand. So, kind of amazing. Really love this little brewery.
What's interesting? That's really cool. Really cool stories. And what's interesting is, and I'm interested to see the rank of the 4th beer, but those are all Marine Corps rankings. So if they're dog tags for they do the Army, Air Force. I don't know if they do the other ones, but those are all Marines.
It was all actually founded by Marines, and so it is all Marine Corps based.
Okay. Excellent.
Yes, sir.
It's really touching that there's a company out there that does that, and I think it goes back to, what Mark was sharing and what we talked about earlier with the beer community. It's a way of telling a story, and those cans in that brewery are telling their story, and putting that message out there to everyone that's drinking, and whether you're a fan of the beer or not. I think that's one of the most beautiful things that we can encounter in the whole community of craft beer. So kudos.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I swear I heard when they were doing that, because remember that was like I think that brewery is a few years old now, and there was a brewery 4 or 5 years ago that was donating like a bunch of beer to the military guys that were coming back, and I forget who it was, but it may have had some correlation to those guys. I just remember hearing a story once, and there was something about the dog tags. So I don't know, but that's powerful,
awesome.
Man. That's really neat. So yeah.
So what is it?
I like that
it's
almost
dog
a
tag. What?
It is actually it's Dog Tag Brewing, and the specific lager that I'm referring to is their legacy lager, and
okay,
it's very powerful. I mean, in terms of the story, it's actually very drinkable beer. Talking about the beer sense of it to get on a real level there, very drinkable beer. I mean, this is the type of beer that I would hand out, and I would say, look, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, maybe, I love my Bud Light, I love my, I'm sorry, I won't name drop anything, but I love my mainstream beer. I love my mainstream heavy, my mainstream light. Like if you're sitting there, if you're one of those kind of guys, this is the type of branch out beer that I wish somebody would have brought to me. This is something that, hey, this is a little heavier. This is something a little different. They use a little bit different hops. They use a little different brewing process. That would have been right up my alley to say, okay, kind of something different. I like it, not too far out of the ballpark. Love it altogether. I wouldn't consider it a crazy craft beer. I wouldn't consider it something way out of the ballpark, but I love where they're going with it. I love their premise. I love what they do. I love how, where they come from on this. So I would love to support this in the future, and I would love to pass that on to people who don't know craft beer. I would love to pass this on to people who do know craft beer but don't know the type of benefits that they provide to the community. So
awesome.
That's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, man. No, it is, like you said, it's powerful. So, and it's relevant because we're wrapping things up. So you're looking back and you're saying, what are these things that need to be talked about? And that's a cool brewery and it's a cool concept. And so I'm all about it. But thanks for sharing that story, Laos, man.
No problem, man.
So that it is an interesting segue because the next segment that we have is part of our geek news, and again, looking back in 2016, it was a rough year, man. It was a rough year for a lot of reasons, and in the I don't know, more the mainstream reasons. Some of those mainstream reasons, a lot of people died in 2016. A lot of celebrities, a lot of
Kimbo
people.
Slice.
Yeah, just a lot of people, man. Alan Thicke, for Pete's sake. Just
Prince.
Wait, we're just separating Kimbo Slice, Alan Thicke, and Prince. Well, okay, I just want to make sure.
The ones that I really had to talk about.
I talked about American heroes, and this just happened.
Well, I'm sure, and deaths this year came in all shapes and sizes, but because we're in the geeky news section of this, it is a good segue because that we lost 3 key characters to the Star Wars franchise this year. One of which just happened on the 27th, 3 days ago, which is sad. But for a recap here, and I just spent a little time kind of researching this. We lost Eric Bowersfield, which was he had a very minor role, but you'd know it instantly.
Yeah.
He was the voice of Admiral Akbar, and he died on April 3rd of this year. Which is a shame because that's such a memorable line. It's like the guy who, if the guy who actually was Boba Fett died, it's not like you really saw that guy, but he's such an iconic character that you feel it passing. Also, Kenny Baker, and Kenny Baker died at 81 on August 13th of this year. He was the droid R2-D2.
R2-D2.
So he physically was the man that was inside of the suit for R2-D2. So though you never really saw his face, you felt like whoever that was, it was more than just like an animatronic robot. It was a man in that little tin that was making that character come to life. And that's one of the only 2 characters that have been in every Star Wars movie to date. So you know what, you gotta be a little upset when a guy like Kenny Baker passes. Then, out of left field, Carrie Fisher at 60 died on December 27th as a complications from a Delta flight that they were about 15 minutes from landing, and she had a massive heart attack that sent her into the hospital. She was doing great, everything was fine, and then boom, out of essentially nowhere, she passed on the 27th. Then her mom, Debbie Reynolds, died a few days later. So it's
one day
another huge icon in her own.
Yeah, another huge celebrity icon. So I just want to take a few minutes. Yep. Yeah, I just want to take a few minutes. We only have a few minutes left here, but it's worth stating that these, not just in Star Wars in general. I mean, I bring this out and highlight Star Wars. We lost a lot of other iconic guys, like you said, and ladies like Bowie and Prince and things like that, who have their own cult followings. But that's a lot. It's a lot to take in for 2016 for 1 year. It's just a lot. And Carrie Fisher is probably the one that sticks out, even though it's the most recent one. She's the one that sticks out to me because, and I was trying to talk about this earlier with you guys, but when Star Wars came out, I wasn't born yet. None of you guys were. But when I first watched Star Wars, Princess Leia was not. I think I was too young to consider her like a sex icon, but she was someone that she was probably one of the first female actresses that I was like honestly a fan of and was following as if it was Luke Skywalker or Vader or whoever else. I just remember back in the day when I was real small and I first watched that movie from this A New Hope. She was like the first female character that I was like really a big fan of. So I later learned that Carrie Fisher as a person was outspoken and wild and enjoyed life and just did a lot of fun stuff, and she had a fun time. She also had her own struggles with bipolar disorder and alcohol and drugs and things like that. So, she had a lot of things to overcome. But she will be someone that is going to be deeply missed, especially, all deeply miss her presence and whatnot. So I don't know if you guys want to chime in on anybody else that has feelings about any of this kind of stuff, but now's the time. Nice and somber podcast.
Oh, boy.
She was the princess, and that's what we'll know her for. She had all those things going on in her life outside of acting that that was there, but everyone knows her as Leia. So it's a huge icon in the Star Wars galaxy. I know, and the thing is, she was back in it. Leia, she was getting stuff done, and it'll be interesting to see where she's now. But for her to kind of get back into it with such a huge role and then be lost, it's really unfortunate. So,
and we can speculate. We can talk a little bit about speculation for what this means once you guys kind of said your piece. Lost Man, do you have any comments about these passings for this year?
Yeah, Dana kind of said it.
He had his Marine, his dog tag take. So
I've had a deep enough night. Yeah, I've had a deep enough night.
Ryan, you got any final thoughts? Then we can kind of wrap things up and get out of here.
I'll try to keep it real light. Definitely really sad with Carrie Fisher passing, but so many other major stars and icons that we've all grown up with in our life passed away this year. So 2016 can really go to hell. Hopefully there are brighter days and we find new hope in 2017. So,
yep.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, all things aside, it was funny. It was not funny, but as soon as that news came out about Carrie Fisher, the next question that the fans and Disney, of course, released was, what happened with the movie? Is this going to affect episode 8? Things like that. People are speculating all over the place. Who knows? Is that really important at the end of the day? No, it's not. But the interesting thing is that they have assured everybody that filming was shot. It was finished. So the movie will not change. We experienced this with Paul Walker in his passing and the franchise continuing to move on. So they will make do and they'll move on with the character in whatever way they deem necessary. But it is certainly like it's a twist for the franchise. So our feelings and best wishes go out to friends, family of Carrie Fisher. No, that's it. So that's all I had to say. If you guys have nothing else, we can wrap it up. Any final thoughts? Any last notes? Taking that as a no.
Hope all's well.
Okay.
Pretty somber.
Just in general.
Yeah. No, it's a real
dog tags and just.
It's a real downer. But you know what, guys? We've done this. This is our 21st podcast. So congratulations for doing, for staying as close as we are with doing this stuff. And 21 episodes is a lot of episodes. It was a lot to do for this year. So I want to say thank you to you guys for being here and doing this and sticking with it. And I want to say thank you to all the listeners and the viewers and everybody that does follow us or subscribe or listen to us on Android, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, whatever it may be. We appreciate you guys. And though we ended this kind of looking back in a somber tone, we just wanted to come across that we are individuals and people, and we're humble, and we understand, as much as we like to have fun and talk about beer and this kind of stuff, it's you have to look back every now and again and just take into consideration how lucky you are to be doing what we're doing and be here talking to you guys today. So with that said, why tune in next week? Well, next week will be a lot better. It'll be a lot more fun because we'll be kicking off the new year. So it'll be our first episode of 2017. This was our last episode of 2016. New Year's, new beers.
Love it.
So
love it.
You help support the show. Use our Amazon link below. Basically, the wizards there will give us some cash if you buy something by clicking that link. It doesn't cost you anything extra. Just give us a little on this slide. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Guys, where can they find
12
you?
Gems.
12 gems.
12
yeah,
gems.
So
12 gems from the
gems.
Wizards. Yeah,
right. But Laos, you've got those gems for days.
I have several gems on me. Need gems?
Laos gems.
Yeah. Do you guys need gems?
Boys, where can they
some
find
Louse
you?
Gems.
Mr. Louseman, where can they find you, sir?
At Mr. Louseman, not at Mr. Beardman.
Do you want to be at the beardless wonder?
I don't want to
like that.
any sort of bearded affiliation until I get it back. So give me 1 month, and then I'll be right back.
1 month or 1 week? I feel like if you're like me, you can grow this beautiful thing in a week.
Oh, boy.
Did you have to take the whole thing off? Did you not have blades to just kind of go a little bit at a time?
You know, when it gets jammed
said.
in the paper shredder, you have to take the whole thing off. So I don't know what you want from me.
What were you doing that close to a paper shredder? No.
You got to scratch and sniff a marker.
All right. On that note, Mr. Dano, where can they find you?
You can find me at DT Mirt on Twitter.
And Mr. Rye Guy, where can the good people find you?
On Twitter at BrewedBoy813. Hit me up with some questions, some comments, whatever you want. I'm open.
Sounds good. And as always, you can find me at Brewmasters Club on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you may be. We do appreciate you guys watching the show. Honestly, thank you for a great 2016. We love you. We look forward to hanging out with you again in 2017. Please watch the YouTube channel for extra content. Subscribe to us on iTunes or Android. Tell your friends. Leave a review. We could really use a review or two. That helps us to get out there to more people. So we appreciate you once again. Have a great night. Have a good rest of the year. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. We love you. Signing off. Everybody say bye for 2016.
Peace out.
Brewmasters Club podcast, Craft Brews and Geek News. We love you. Happy 2016. Here's the next.
Woo! Adios, cervezas.
You've been listening to the official podcast of the Brewmasters Club, Craft Brews and Geek News. Grab a beer with the guys and be sure to subscribe to catch additional content. Add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. Chat with the guys on Twitter at Brewmasters Club and Facebook and online at www.brewmasters.club. Cheers!